Let's bring in Stephen Conroy and Michael Kroger. Stephen, you were in Parliament, I think, back when Prime Minister Turnbull was meeting Donald Trump. I was certainly covering it. I remember vividly being at the White House and hearing how good they were such good friends, Stephen, Trump and Turnbull, but not anymore.
Well, look, I mean, for all Trump's bluster, Turnbull delivered an exemption. Now, the world has changed a bit since then. And Trump is not just attacking, one or two people. He's economically attacking Canada. Mexico's ripped up the NAFTA. He's actually ripping up the US Free Trade Agreement, which I helped negotiate as the opposition trade spokesperson. He's attacking NATO. This bloke is absolutely not someone that you can deal with simply. He is prosecuting the agenda across the world, and it would be an incredible outcome if we were able to pull off what Malcolm Turnbull did. But I'm not a big defender of Malcolm Turnbull, but to his credit, for all Trump trying to say, no, he's a weak man. Well, Donald, you gave him the exemption. He did a good job. That's the point that you want to miss. But I think Trump 2.0, the new Trump doctrine is a much harder beast to handle. And I don't think if you're Peter Dutton or Anthony Albanese, you're going to have the impact that we might have had with somebody who could say, hey, we're your ally, we're in every war with you, we're integrated with you militarily. Don't you think you need to be a bit reasonable? He's not in that mindset.
And Joe Hockey did a brilliant job back in the day as well, Michael. He was the only diplomat who was on the links playing golf with Trump at the time. But Stephen's right, isn't he? This time, the people around Trump, like Peter Navarro and so on, Navarro the other day said, we don't have allies, we've got competitors. That's the worldview that's in Donald Trump's ear right now.
Well, if he meant from a trade point of view, I think, to be fair to him. But look, the Trump doctrine is America first, as we know. So they think steel and aluminium imports from Australia are harming the American steel industry from a production point of view, so looks like they're going to put a tariff on us. I think the point is, though, to be fair, Malcolm did a very good job, but look, there's 200 countries in the world trying to get face time with the American administration, whoever the president is. You've got to get face time with these people to explain your position. Now, Hockey clearly, 2018, he was the ambassador from Australia. He knew the Trump administration. He prosecuted our case, obviously, incredibly well, and we won the exemption. Let's not beat around the bush here. I don't think it helps having Kevin Rudd as our Australian ambassador. I mean, Trump's difficult to deal with, obviously, but you start behind the eight ball when the Australian ambassador says of the US president, the most dangerous leader in the world, and all the other things he said about him. It doesn't help, which was why Albanese should never have appointed Rudd in the first place. So, of course, we start from a huge diplomatic disadvantage when, 7 years ago we had Joe Hockey and now we've got Kevin Rudd, KG.
Stephen, the Trump drama, though, and I know that it throws people off course, and certainly the Europeans are scrambling now to boost their defence spend and so on. But I spoke to Mark Watson earlier. He was in the embassy at the time when Prime Minister Turnbull was in office. And he's saying, well, the Europeans have never been closer. So you see this situation where, the markets are down, obviously, economically right now, people struggling to adjust to Trump. But this, throwing the chessboard up, it has some impact where you can see some positives out of Donald Trump as you try and navigate the uncertainty and the chaos.
Well, I think you're putting lipstick on a pig in that description there. You do not have, at this point, and maybe we'll get there, and the world hopes that there is some grand strategy other than kissing Putin's ass, okay? You've got to deliver permanent security for Ukraine, not just, an implied, we've sort of got American mining interests now, so of course we'll defend you. Well, he could do that deal with Putin too. So he could let Putin march on in, and as long as Putin agreed to let the Americans keep mining, what does that mean for Ukraine's actual sovereignty? So you've got his threats to the UK, Don't you dare give them any intelligence. He's undermining the UK's Trident nuclear missile defence at the moment. He's turned off intelligence to the Ukrainians to defend themselves, and then goes, yeah, well, you know, any rational person like Putin would, of course, increase their bombing because they're not being protected by us at the moment, irrespective of the loss of life in the Ukraine. And he is not just throwing the chessboard up, he is thrown the chessboard away. It's as Michael and I have now said, there's this new Trump doctrine that the Western allies need to understand cold, clear-eyed, the fundamental change that Trump is driving. It's not, you know, the US-Western alliance first. It's America first, second and third, and the rest of you can just take the crumbs off the table when we're finished. Nobody believes that tariffs are going to improve the living standards of average Americans at all. It's going to drive up prices. We've seen trucks go up $20,000 in an instant because of his plans. We've got Canada putting a 25% tariff on energy exports into the north of the US. I mean, this is not, you know, Trump must be getting tired of having wins like this. And he's now talking openly, you know, I don't speculate there might be a recession, you know, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is driven by his absolutely crazy tariff-driven policy that Navarro, who was a fringe player 4 years ago, is now front and centre. I mean, when he's convinced Trump that tariff is the most beautiful word in the English language, the world needs to sit up and just take notice of the economic and foreign policy, not tossing it up in the air, throwing it away and starting again.
Michael, the former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer was on the program yesterday, and he was telling our viewers that in his view that it's a wake-up call to Europe, that they need to fund their own defence and they should have been aware of that sooner. And he's also of the view that Trump won't disengage when it comes to China. In fact, those around him and the Trump administration want Europe to deal with Russia so that the US can deal appropriately with China.
Well, I think that's absolutely correct. I mean, under his doctrine, one thing is very clear. He is saying to the Europeans, why should the hardworking American taxpayers' dollars be raised and spent in the Ukraine and elsewhere in Europe when your taxpayers should be paying for it? Why is my working middle class paying for your defence? And I think it's an arguable proposition to the American taxpayer. They would agree with that. Now, I think what he's doing in the Ukraine is absolutely terrible. I mean, he should be standing by Zelensky, who's a great hero, I think. But generally speaking, that's his proposition. And I think Alexander's absolutely right. He's got eyes focused on China and I think Taiwan. And he is saying to the Europeans, that's your business. And you can understand why he's saying that, because the Americans are spending billions whilst the Europeans are not. And it all comes back to the taxpayers' dollars. It comes back to this America First doctrine, which is that's your responsibility. We are not the world's policemen. Our taxpayers shouldn't be paying for everything. If you don't have the political, capacity to convince your voters that you should be paying for this, well, that's your problem, not mine. That's what he's saying to Europe.
Stephen, I do want to turn
Kieran,
quickly
if I could just disagree with...
Yeah, no, go for it. Jump in.
So the problem with Michael's analysis is that, yeah, he says the Europeans didn't spend enough. He also told the Europeans 4 years ago, stop being reliant on Russian energy. And overnight, there are reports he's secretly negotiating with the Russians to rebuild the pipeline to supply energy into Europe. This bloke is not prosecuting a coherent argument. Now, Europe comes up, he's still trying to. If you listen to Bannon, Steve Bannon's podcast, the great plan, if you want to call it a plan, is they want to break Russia out of the Russia-China alliance. The Russians would have to be stupid to fall for that one. Trump's not going to be around forever. He's 82, okay? So he is actively undermining the Western alliance, not on the basis that it's that it's not spending enough money to defend itself. He's negotiating with them to rebuild the pipeline. He's stopped the foreign interference investigations of Russia into elections. They've stopped, most importantly, the cyber security task force that's about stopping Russian cyber hacks and attacks on the US. This is not a Europe's got to take care of Russia. This is anything but Europe. So they could spend the 5%. It will not change his view on what he's actually trying to do with Russia. This is a false argument. I'm not being critical of Michael. It's sort of a popular narrative at the moment, but it's not what's actually happening in the real discussions that he's having with them.
Well, 4 years ago, Stephen, Russia hadn't invaded the Ukraine. That's the problem. It looks to me as if he's trying, as you say,
actually they had, Michael. They actually had. In 2014, they invaded.
Okay, yeah. So there was 2014.
2014, they invaded Ukraine for the first time.
Yeah.
Just to be clear,
that was
pre-Trump.
Okay, that was under Obama. What he appears to be trying to do is to isolate Russia from Iran and China. Boy, if he's able to pull that off, that would be a great thing for the world.
Yeah.
If Russia, agreed to rejoin the G8 if they'd have them from the G7, and be a nation which was not invading its other countries, et cetera, that would be a great achievement. So I don't know whether he's trying to do that or not, but that would be an achievement.
Michael and Stephen, gentlemen, thank you